This episode of Elle from the world of Legally Blonde is brought to you by Ole Paris. Now, I can't quite do the voice, sorry guys, but here, how insane is that? Legally Blonde is sponsored by Ole Paris. Do I love that? Do I hate it? Is it a little bit too cute? Whatever, I'm gonna get into it. This is gonna be me talking about the first two episodes of Elle, the new Legally Blonde prequel. Yes, everything is getting a prequel nowadays. So I was reading up on this a little earlier in the week. All episodes are up on Amazon now. And Reese Witherspoon, the star of Legally Blonde, it was the sort of hit comedy from the early 2000s that really put Reese Witherspoon on the map. The production company is quite heavily involved in this, so I think you can see how she's quite invested. And in the article I was reading in the newspaper, because you remember reading stuff in the newspapers, don't you, kid? We're talking about how they saw this as like this kind of like positive, upbeat show with like a strong kind of positive message, and how it's almost going to be like the inverse, the reverse of a lot of like the doom and gloom which is going around at the moment, and like just giving a little bit of a hopeful message when there's all this dark, depressing stuff going on in the world. And they were talking a good game is the thing. So with Reese Witherspoon being involved and so maybe some heart going into this, that's why I decided to give it a look. Prequel story, or like it's a backstory for Elle, early years before she decided to go off to law school, and that being the basis of Legally Blonde, which is a very enjoyable movie. Crazy, it's like 25 years old. I think it's getting reissued back into cinema, but it's a very smart, funny movie and a real star-making turn. This reverse gag is then Elle Wood has to transfer from sunny LA, where she's like top of everything and everyone loves her and it's all bright and breezy, and she gets to be kind of her adorable but vapid self. But she must transfer, she must move to Seattle, and just the idea of Seattle being this doom and gloom type place, this more moody type, arty type place where Elle just struggles to fit in. And there's gags about how like she's barely heard of Seattle and just what a dread it is to like move there from LA. And it's a perfect musical choice, the way they use Garbage's I'm Only Happy When It Rains on the soundtrack at the start of the title. So that's a perfect music cue. I'll talk a bit about the music because it is jam-packed with music, but yeah, it's almost similar to like you see Elle Wood, Reese Witherspoon go to law school in the movie and has to try and charm people and make it, convince them that she belongs here. So it's pretty much the same for this, except it's an earlier, this is the teenage version in high school. Suffers like inverse sort of snobbery in a way. And that's why the Elle Wood character is so perky and charming, because she's never actually a snob. She's just like dim-witted and naive, and there's a lot of fun to be had with that. Elle Wood in this, the younger Elle Wood, is very well cast. I think Lexi Maintree is very good. She's just got the look down, the posture, the mannerisms. She's a very, almost like a mini version of Reese Witherspoon from the original film, which I think is what you want. Very sort of quirky, very nervous energy and awkward, which I guess fits for what they're going for in this storyline. But yeah, they've cast her very well. I think she's a very likeable presence in the lead. I like that she's not like too over the top, like bouncy or like bit of a mean girl. That's not what the character is anyway, but I like that they don't go too overboard making her like insanely brute or glammed up, because a lot of her friends who we see in the first part of the pilot are fully like normal looking, like pretty, and they're into like what they're into, but like they're not overly like glamorous. Lexi Mindtree, I think, is very enjoyable to watch. She's just got it down to the T. Like you feel, yeah, this is like the younger teenage Elle. Introduction to her, like the birthday speech in the opening episode in the pilot, when she's like thanking all the people important to her. So she says to her best friend Madison, "I can't count the number of times you helped me pluck my eyebrows. If not for you, my school year picture would have looked like Mona Lisa." So there's a good number of like gags that really hit like that. They also shoe in like references to Bryan Adams and Madonna in that opening scene, which is a little bit off. Like they don't quite land. Like I can see what they're going for, because this is meant to be some years ago and like pre the original film, but yeah, references like that are maybe a little bit too forced. A lot of fun with gags about Elle going to school in Seattle, and the idea of that just being how, because there's no sunshine, it rains a lot. That's what they, and they almost talk about it like it's a foreign country. Like at one point when she's talking to Madison on the phone, and there's a gag about, oh my god, Madison's got a car phone, because it's that sort of era where if you've got a car phone, that was like the new thing to have. But like nowadays, it's almost it's a nothing burger if you have a car phone. In a way, it's almost like we're so past that now. Madison is talking to Elle about, why don't you learn the lingo? Like talking about it like it's a language. And that leads to one of the funniest scenes of the opening 2 episodes. It's one of the scenes that was in the trailer, and it's when Elle tries a little too hard and goes to school in a Nirvana t-shirt. And that's funny because I remember from my youth when I got up to a certain age, and you would see a lot of like punky type teenagers wearing Nirvana t-shirts around town, and I definitely had moments like that where I was a bit like, oh, they're just trying to be cool, and oh, look at them. And I feel bad now because that's quite a snobby thing to do, but we a lot of people do it. Sometimes you just can't help but think, yeah, they're just latching on to this thing to be cool. They're wearing the top, and Kimberly, who's like really her rival ultimately in the first 2 episodes, because a lot of the people she comes up against in Seattle, she eventually kind of wins over or charms, or at least some of them might not be so keen on her, but they're not exactly like monsters. A lot of them aren't like as aggressively like anti towards Elle, whereas Kimberly's constantly calling her out for making things about her being too self-centered. She mocks her about the fact she comes from LA, and it's like, well, here in Seattle we actually care about stuff. We actually care about environmental issues, and that's what I mean about like this inverse snobbery. It's almost this idea of she's doing to Elle what maybe people would think someone like Elle would do to other people, or that kind of elite sort of rich snob. Being into arty stuff encourages them to like be real snooty and just bratty and nasty for no reason, and just to run people down who aren't into the same things they are. She is definitely the main adversary to Elle. Nirvana t-shirt moment was funny because of Kimberly's lines. Like when she sees Elle in it, she's like, I hear that's the second worst thing that has happened to Kurt Cobain, and that was a real burn line. I've got to give it to Kimberly. That was sort of like darkly funny, even though she's like pretty much like a bitch overall. So they've really gone to town on a lot of the musical references in this, and the soundtrack itself. Like there's some good sort of poppy moments, some good like musical cues. As I said, Garbage, that song over the the titles. You got bands like Hole, bands like REM, Bikini Kill, like the punk girl feminist scene. There's all these references to like Seattle's music scene and artists who were considered, popular but also quite hip at the time. Like, it really is in tune with that sort of era. At times it does feel like a little bit of a checklist, and it does feel like sometimes they're shoehorning this stuff in, and it's a lot of buzzwords, a lot of ticking things off, like they mentioned getting a bus to Olympia. One of my least favourite jokes, which was like just a little bit too on the nose, was when they're talking about Bikini Kill in the cafeteria, and Elle again is perking up and trying to take an interest in this stuff, and Kimberly's like, wait, you've heard of Bikini Kill? And Elle's like, oh yes, I know bikinis that kill. And that line was just a little bit too try-hard. The writers showing their age and showing this is the stuff we were into when we were young. I was really popping this. I like the design and some of the direction because of how you get obviously the brighter poppy colours when they're in LA, but then you get the more moody, muted colours when they're in Seattle. And episode 2 actually opens with a cool like dream sequence where Elle is dreaming that she's still out in LA and still is like really popular, and things are going well with what she calls Hot Josh, which is funny. But yeah, that's sort of her crush in LA, the culture of Seattle, and how Elle just sees it. Elle and her friends back in LA just see it as like almost like an alien type place or a different country. Like, I do like Elle and her mum, Ava, their reactions when they're driving in and to school, and all these kids are popping up on skateboards and slamming into the cars and their car, and they're freaking out. Parents are likeable enough parents, and you can see that they care for their daughter in their own way. Like, they do that thing of scoring her tickets to like a concert so that she can try and fit in with this character of Liz who works in a local record store who Elle's trying to befriend. And that's a very parent thing to be doing, really. But it's just funny that they have their contacts on the black market, which is basically Madison's parents. Some decent humour in it. Overall, the jokes are pretty funny, and you definitely get ones that aren't so funny, but it's pretty solid overall. The lead character is likeable. There's a few other characters who are, decent to watch and quite well cast. There's a lot of characters, but I guess that's just because it's like an 8-9 episode season. First episode where she's doing this auction of other people's stuff. Like one of her classmates, who's one of the ones who does befriend her really in his own way. You're not sure if he's going to yet, but Dustin his name is, and she calls him by the wrong name, of course, to like auction off one of his, like a vase or something that he did in like art class to try and raise money for like a relative of his or something like that. And it's a really nice scene because she like turns things around and I think just her upbeat positive nature, which just works for her, because like the inverse wasn't really working, but like she charms a lot of her friends. And I think there's also just this way of Elle, the way she just cuts to the chase of things. Famous sports jersey of some like local sports star, and she's just saying to the other, her classmates, like, no, this guy doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. Other things matter. As she's listing off all these different like things that her classmates has done, like she wins over this other girl called Alison, and they just turn it into a positive kind of jokes. It's like, sure, you've got flaws, sure, you've done things, but it's nothing to be ashamed of, and she starts listing them out. But then things take a little turn, because it turns out that Donna, who's the librarian who has befriended Elle earlier in the episode and actually been one of the nicest people to her and encouraged her, and Elle perked up a bit when she saw that, hey, she reads Cosmopolitan as well, because of course you can still be arty and intellectual and, you know, not the most obviously glamorous person, but you can still be into like reading glossy like chick lit mags. Elle's stunt backfires because she lets slip some information about Donna, or about some money to help like a what she claims is like a homeless kid, and when this all comes out she gets fired. Elle is trying to help Donna. She's trying to put pressure on the principal, Anderson, to like rehire her, and a funny moment when she's in class and like the snooty Shakespeare teacher gives Elle an idea to like start up a petition, and Elle's like, okay, you're a genius. So she starts getting involved in a petition to try and get her rehired, but she starts having these dilemmas where she's thinking about how can I use this affair that the principal's having, blackmail him into getting Donna's job back, and doesn't want to come back because she's already got another job. She's working at the fish market because, yes, it's Seattle, everyone. Donna's like, no, I'm over it now. I accept the responsibility. Shouldn't be starting petitions, Elle. Just focus on yourself. You've got enough to worry about. So it makes us warm to Donna. Liz, who's the girl who's really into the music and works at the local record store. When they're at this concert, Elle learns that Liz is the daughter of Donna, and Donna explains that Mr. Anderson, the principal, fiddled some sheets, some paperwork to keep Liz in school. Politely asks Elle, please don't make a deal of this, please let it lie, because if you make a big deal of it and arrange and put pressure on him to bring my mum back to work, the chances are he will then use it as an excuse to kick me out of school. So they're setting up these dilemmas. He tells Shannon later on in the phone that, hey, I think we should drop that thing about the affair and the principal, because it probably wasn't that concrete anyway. Shannon stuff in episode 2, where I find this stuff quite relatable, and it's quite a nice little, yeah, we've all been there type moment, is, so this girl Shannon and Elle hit it off quite quickly, because Shannon is like some sort of like student liaison character who helps people settle in and socialise, and Elle is impressed because the reason she didn't catch her in first week is because she was away at some sort of like fashion event, so she immediately warms to her, it's like, because she's into like fashion like her. And that's the clever thing I think they do with this character Shannon, is they do make her like the inverse Elle a little bit, where she is like the Seattle version of Elle, where she is very like bubbly and upbeat and just very like positive. The way she dresses and stuff, and she's got the goth makeup, she's obviously very different in appearance to Elle, but she welcomes her with like a gift basket and set this thing up with Shannon where it's like, I think she's meant to be like, okay, she probably is friendly and nice, but she's trying a bit too hard, a bit like Elle is, I think. Shannon's like, well, I'm a feminist. I like women's good sides and their bad sides. So talking about Donna. One moment I really like in episode 2 is when Elle stumbles upon Shannon and Kimberly in the cafeteria, and they're hanging out, and hugging their friends, they're sitting at the same table, and Elle's face just drops. She's just like really shocked. And you also have that thing with Kimberly where she looks over at Elle and she puts her bag on like the seat next to her so Elle can't get any ideas about coming over and sitting there. And yeah, that's an old classic, isn't it? But I just love that moment because we've all been there. We've been like, when Elle sees them together and she just can't picture it. It's like, how can she be friends with somebody like Kimberly? Like, we've all had that. One minute we're quite upbeat because we've made a new friend and you seem to hit it off with her, and then you just have that moment when you see her with someone that you don't really like and you haven't been getting on with, and you're like, oh God, is she really the person I thought she was? But then, like, Dustin talks to Elle about it, says, the truth is Kimberly doesn't act around Shannon the way she acts around you. Like, and again, that's sort of very relatable. Shannon friendship still seems to be on because Shannon invites Elle to her mother's book signing, and that's when Elle's mother embarrasses her with, like, because she's read the book and all that. There's a gag about she doesn't like the colour of the book, the colour schemes of the book, but she really embarrasses Elle when she makes the comment, like, this book which is about a really heavy sort of real emotional issue, and Elle's mother Ava compares it to when her husband botched like a nose job because her husband's like a plastic surgeon. So still pretty cool with Shannon and Elle. Like, it just seems that it's that thing of Shannon doesn't really see the side of Kimberly that Elle does. Shannon calls Elle later because there's this thing where she gets injured in like a mosh pit thing, and there's just this gag later when they're at the hospital and they get a lot of kids coming in with injuries because they've been jumping about in the mosh pit. So again, it's Elle trying to fit in and be a part of things. A little bit of a twist at the end because Miles, who is again the inverse Justin or the inverse hot Josh, the one that Elle has a crush on back home, who's like being friendly, like the cute guy who she sort of has a little bit of a vibe with, and again he's very like awkward and shy but very sweet and has been positive towards Elle, and they've sort of set him up as like maybe a potential love interest, a bit like you had with Luke Wilson in the original movie. But yeah, plot twist at the end, which is a decent hook, is Elle comes across him kissing Shannon. So it turns out they're together. She knew Shannon had a boyfriend, we just didn't know who he was, and that's kind of the plot twist, the cliffhanger at the end. It's actually Miles, the guy Elle likes. I don't think it's going to set your world on fire. Like, I don't think this is going to be like one of the best things you'll see all year, but I think for like a prequel type show, and if you're looking for something that's quite in tune with the original, but it also puts a couple of twists on things. It's obviously more of a coming of age show. It's got a likeable lead and some decent gags, a nice little indie nostalgic soundtrack, and bit of a time capsule for the time. I think if you're looking for that kind of very watchable show with a little bit of a heart to it, then I think this is going to tick a lot of those boxes. So far it's pretty solid, enjoyable stuff. I had a decent time with the character. Let me know what you guys think of this new series in the comments below if you've seen it. Like and subscribe as always. Share me out on social media. You can support me at patreon.com/borednow, or you can become a channel member at 3 different tiers. Keep watching TV, guys. I'll see you again soon. Goodbye.
Let's give it up one more time for the birthday girl, Elle Woods. I would just like to raise a glass to all of you. My friends, my world. I'm so lucky to have this life. I wouldn't change a thing.
Something important we want to talk to you about.
Elle, we're moving to Seattle.
No. It doesn't sound right. I'm just a girl. I'm just a girl in the world.
Nice umbrella.
Thanks, it's an heirloom.
She's joking. You look like an idiot.
Take this pink ribbon off my eye. I'm Elle.
What?
I like iced coffee the month of July, and when people dress kind of Tennessee, even if they don't play tennis.
Did someone put you up to this?
Don't just think I know exactly where I stand.
LA. Yeah, that explains it.
What's wrong with LA? I don't feel like I really speak the same language as anyone here.
Well, have you tried learning their language?
What do you mean?
Get fluent in Seattle.
This world is forcing me to hold your hand.
Did no one ever tell you that we don't do posers here? Seattle isn't a costume, and pink isn't a personality.
I can't do the little things. What if I really am the vapid LA girl they all think I am?
You know who you are? You're a Gemini.
I bet they hate astrology too.
What's happening with the support staff?
Principal Anderson fudges facts on official paperwork. We need to break into his office to prove it.
She could actually be useful.
For you.
Thank you.
If anyone can do it, you can.
I'm just a girl. Oh, you need a tough guy name. I know. Bruiser.